Welcome to the Warrior in Progress podcast. This podcast features honest and vulnerable discussions about how to make lasting mindset shifts. Through these mindset shifts, you'll be able to commit to yourself and stop sabotaging yourself so you can transform your life. I'm your host, Jennifer McKee, certified health coach and motivational speaker. Look, I've been there. I've done that. I've lost over 50% of my body weight naturally. That's 185 pounds. I invite you to subscribe to the Warrior in Progress podcast for motivational, inspirational, and thought-provoking topics where I'll share with you some practical tools that I've learned on my journey so far that will empower you and help you to access that inner warrior that's inside each and every one of us. Are you ready to get started? Let's go.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Warrior in Progress podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer McKee. Today I have with me a very special guest, Heidi Powell. Most of you have seen her on Extreme Weight Loss or know about the Transform brand. So for those of you who don't know, she is a transformation expert, a trainer. She's a mother of 4. Gosh, where to start? She does so much. And most of you have probably heard of the Transform brand. There's the Transform app, which is a great tool for tracking food, workouts, and recipes, so much more, as well as a Transform supplement brand line. So anyway, welcome, Heidi. I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And
I'm happy to be here.
Good. As most of you guys know, I talk about the things I've learned from Heidi in all of my podcast episodes. And so I'm going to be really excited today to kind of get her opinion and take on certain topics that I hear so much from you guys. And I think, the first one, Heidi, is maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background, your story, about what led you to become, the transformation expert you are today. Like, just what inspired you to want to help others, change their lives?
I think it's interesting because I think some people choose their path, but I actually think I had a path that God wanted me to be on and kind of led me here, if that makes sense. Because funny enough, right out of high school, I was a trainer. I only did it for 6 months to 8 months. And I did not love being a trainer in a gym, but I loved fitness. I grew up in a fit family. I actually went into the business world because that's kind of where my natural knack and I think my talent, my major, I always say I have a major in business and a minor in fitness, right? But all of that together, that ability with a foundation of addiction recovery and a foundation of having made a lot of mistakes myself that have helped create experience that I believe exists to help other people. And for so many years of my life, I had my decade-long eating disorder. I had, a dad that was an addict that passed away. I've had so many family members. I've had addiction affect my life in so many different ways. And I couldn't figure out why. And I was so ashamed and I was so embarrassed by my actions and my wrongdoings that I couldn't even share that with anybody, because I felt like if they knew what I was hiding, if they knew what I was doing currently, or if they know if they knew what I've done, if they knew that I ruined my teeth because I was bulimic, they would not want to be in my life, and I would not be worthy. I would not be good enough. I would not be lovable. Until I met Chris, obviously, and together I was actually just helping him with business stuff. And he was like, hey, why don't you come take a part in this fitness thing I'm doing? And then we ended up creating a show together. And it was through there that he just couldn't handle the load of people, is really what it was. In season 1, he had a big load of people. I also was a trainer by trade. I had gotten my certification again, but I jumped in to help. And I realized in helping, and by helping, I took on a full load. It was like I was all in because I wanted his endeavors to be successful. But I realized inside of it that my approach to helping somebody lose the weight had nothing to do with weight loss. And it had everything to do with learning to love themselves, because that's what I wanted. And that's what helped me. It had nothing to do with curing an eating disorder, nothing. And it had everything to do with me learning to love and appreciate myself exactly as I am. And then the healing can happen. And then the eating disorder recovery can happen. Same when I'm teaching and helping people love and accept themselves, even if they're binging, even if they're purging, even if they're, 3, 4, 500 pounds. I don't care what you look like. I care that you see you have what it takes that you are enough, and you have what it takes to take the simple steps to recovery. And so that is actually what I got into that, and I saw the changes that I was able to help people make by sharing my imperfections and by sharing my, mistakes made, and sharing what I learned, and that connectivity, seeing that I am the same as you and the same as you and the same as you. It's just my disorder looks different physically, but it's the same. I'm just hiding it better. That knowing that I could use what I had done wrong to help somebody else made me grateful for my horrible, painful past. That's how I got back into it. That's how I got into it.
I love that. And I'm actually wearing a shirt that says perfectly imperfect, which is kind of hard to see. But, I first heard that from you, Heidi, and that kind of goes hand in hand with what you're talking about, learning how to love ourselves as we are, where we are on our journey, right?
Yeah. So, there's that Japanese proverb, wabi sabi, or not proverb, that Japanese saying, wabi sabi. It's an idea that our imperfections are actually what make us beautiful. So like the model with the gap tooth, or me with my painful past, or you with your challenges, Jennifer, like that's what makes you magnetic and beautiful.
It's so amazing that, sometimes we feel like we have to be perfect before we can help anybody else or share our experience. But you just perfectly said it. That's not the case at all. We're all on a journey from now until the day we die. And, as we work through stuff, I really feel that, letting go of that shame and that guilt, and just saying, this is where I was, or this is where I am, and this is what I want to share. And we can actually help people not feel so alone, and help them start to heal like you're talking about. So I just think that's amazing. Such an amazing thing. But now let's talk about integrity. So this was one of the very first things that I learned by reading one of your blog posts, which I believe was called, It's All About Promises, or something like that.
All about the promise.
Yeah, it's all about the promise.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing for me, because you talk about integrity in that article, and you talk about how, a lot of times we have no problem keeping integrity to other people, like our spouse, our work, our children, whoever it may be. But when it comes to ourselves, it's like a totally different story. We break these promises to ourselves all of the time. And also what you said in the blog post was, not only are we breaking promises to ourselves, we're promising things to ourselves that are completely unrealistic. I'm going to eat clean 100% of the time. I'm going to exercise 7 days a week. It's this kind of like all or nothing thinking. So in that blog post, you talk about how to set small and attainable goals, and also the importance of staying in integrity. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about, what is integrity in your own words, and why is it so important to stay in integrity with ourselves?
Yeah, such a good question, such a good topic. So to simply state it, integrity is doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, not just to everybody else, but most importantly to yourself, because you, Jennifer McKee, or you listening to this, whoever's listening, you are truly the most important person in your world. You have to be. And if you can't make that reprioritization, if you are stuck feeling like your parents or your kids or your friends or your job or your obligations are more important than you are to yourself, you will inevitably have a really hard time in this life. You will, and you will burn out at some point. What that is saying, when you are making commitments to other people and you're keeping them, but you're making commitments to yourself and not keeping them, you are signaling to anybody that knows better that you do not feel like you are enough. And so you think, by following through, by doing this for them, by showing them I can be there to do all these things and letting myself down, they're going to love me. Then they're going to see I'm valuable. Then they're going to see I'm worth it. And then I'm going to feel good and I'm going to be happy. Like, we are so busy trying to get the love and appreciation and the worthiness flags from other people. We never take time to do it for ourselves. And you might get it for a second from somebody else. You might work hard enough at your job. You might get praise online. You might have all of the people loving you for a minute. But if you don't love yourself by way of having integrity with yourself, you will never find peace. You will never find happiness. You will never have dignity, which is self-love. Your integrity is directly related to your self-love, to your dignity. They are intertwined. If A, then B. If you have integrity, then you will love yourself. If you have integrity with yourself, you will love yourself. And you know this. And if you think about it, it's like, hey, why? And it's a really hard pill for people to swallow. For us to stand in a room or me to tell somebody, oh, you're unhappy because there's a break in your integrity with yourself. You are not at peace because you don't have integrity. I can say that because I am human too. And I have moments where I don't have integrity. And when I'm not feeling in alignment in my life, it's because there's a break in my integrity. It's true. And so you have to think, how many times in your life have you said, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. to work out. I'm going to diet starts Monday. I'm going to work out for 2 hours a day. I'm going to drink this much water. 2005, that's my year. 2006, 2007, 2021. This is actually going to be my year. So many times we have made promises to ourselves that we have not kept. Because when that year rolls around, we start off really strong. Or when Monday rolls around, we start off strong. Tuesday comes, Wednesday, oh, Thursday, shoot, we mess up. Friday, we mess up again. Saturday, it's over, and we feel worse about ourselves than ever before. And often we will make these promises audibly, like we'll make them out loud. We will speak these promises. Hey, I'm going to start a challenge with you. I'm going to do this. Let's do it as a group. But when you repeatedly fall off the wagon and you do not follow through with your promise that you made to yourself, you stop believing that you can actually do it. You stop believing you have the ability to, and you think you are broken and you think everybody else is normal and they can do it. I can't. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop speaking my promises out loud. And you do something called silent promises. If you are somebody who lives in or exists in a space where you are only promising things silently to yourself, that is a death trap. A silent promise means you're not going to follow through. You're not going to follow through. So you're saying it quietly. So then you don't have to own up when anybody asks you about it. So let's talk about why people have a hard time keeping integrity with themselves. The number one reason, and you hit on this at the beginning, is we make promises that are too big. We have this idea that in order to transform our lives or to lose all the weight, Jennifer, you've been here, that I have to do this. I have to do 2 hours of cardio a day. I have to wake up at this time. I have to drink this much water. I have to eat like this. I have to cut everything out. We get so overwhelmed and we have the best of intentions, but that is too much for any human, including myself, to take on. I can't do that much. I can't do that much. You can't do that much. Nobody can do that much over a period or over a longer than a certain period of time.
Right.
And so if we can shrink it, if everybody could understand that the way to fix that is to shrink our promises. And instead of committing to 10 things at once, understand that real transformation is keeping it so simple with a thing we call one power promise. So if you just make a power promise to yourself every single day, you have to identify. We always tell people, identify your power promise. For some people I'm working with, their power promise is just drinking an extra 8 ounces of water a day. For another person, it might be moving for 5 minutes a day. For somebody else, it might be making sure you eat breakfast every day. For another person, mine is making my bed every day. That's it. This is my power promise. And I know it's like, what does that have relation to physical fitness? How does that even relate? It doesn't. But what it does is it means every day, if I make my bed, I get to check off the box that says I'm winning. And if I check off the box saying that I'm winning at one thing, what else can I win in? And so for somebody that's just starting on their journey, all right, let's think of one thing that you have not been doing, but is so stupidly simple, you know you can do it every day. Maybe you'd commit to going outside and walking to your mailbox and back. That might be a step for you, and something that's so simple but feels like it's irrelevant. No, it's very relevant. And if you can commit to that and stick to it every single day, do it for a period of time, you can slowly build your promises to where you are seeing results in a way that you never had. And you realize it's a lifestyle, not a quick fix.
Yeah. So it's a lifestyle. So I always tell people, a healthy lifestyle is composed of healthy habits. These are things you're going to be doing the rest of your life. Well, how do you create these healthy habits? You have to start small, because if you go from A to Z, it's like so impossible, because we get overwhelmed, like you're saying. If we try to do all these things at once, we get completely overwhelmed, and then we like throw in the towel. But I've had some clients tell me before, like, for example, like if they were eating out 7 days a week and their power promise was to only eat out 5 times a week versus 7, or 4 times versus 7 times, they said to me, like, how am I going to lose weight doing this? And I don't understand. Well, I feel like I shouldn't eat out at all. And I said, well, eventually, you may get to that point where you don't eat out at all, but if you're eating out 7 days a week right now, it's probably going to be pretty overwhelming for you to go from 7 to 0. So let me ask you a question. Is eating out 4 times a week better than 7 times a week? And they always say yes. But I think we're so trained with the whole quick fix mentality that when we're trying to create healthy habits, and not just with nutrition and exercise, but also mindset, the perspective, like shifting our perspective. It can take a little bit of time, and can be hard for people at first, but this kind of goes back to defining progress, because you were kind of talking about gradually building on these power promises. And if you make your bed every day, you can tick the box, or if somebody drinks an extra 8 ounces of water, they can tick off the box. But some people, they define progress by the scale, or seeing 5 pounds a week drop, which is just not realistic. So what would be your advice to somebody? How can they define progress versus perfection when whether they're starting their transformation journey, or maybe they're on their transformation journey right now, maybe they're struggling to see the progress that they're making?
There's so many different things I can say about this. So I think the number one thing, in order for you to recognize and realize progress, you have to be willing to, number one, actually set a goal, setting SMART goals, and understand your why, because that's going to connect to a proper SMART goal for you. That's number one. Number two, you have to be willing to do progress photos. It's a really scary thing, but if you are scared of the camera and scared of seeing yourself, you're not going to know over time if you're actually progressing. You might even see a number on the scale drop, but when you look in the mirror, you are your own worst critic, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
That's a very, very important thing. And then I think also, number three, I'm going to say, you have to understand and daily do a check-in around what we call NSVs, non-scale victories. I don't know if you've talked about that, Jennifer, but it's so important that we can identify victories outside of a number on the scale, because the number on the scale, that's simply the gravitational pull on the earth. Like, that is your gravitational pull on the earth. That's all that it is. You and what you're achieving needs to be celebrated. When you can sit in a booth for once because you are small enough to, that's celebration. When you have energy to play with your kids, that's a celebration. When you wake up happy because you're just happy for once, that's a celebration that you had an integrity with yourself. There's so many non-scale victories that can be celebrated. And then the last thing I would say is, only you can be the determinant to whether or not you're progressing. You were saying, going from 7 days a week to even 6 days a week of eating out. If you are 1% better today than you were yesterday, that's a win. Nobody else can tell you if you are or you're not. You could have a spouse that's maybe not supportive saying, oh, you're not even, it does not matter what they say. The only thing that matters is that in your heart of hearts, you say, I, Heidi Powell, or I, Jennifer McKee, know that I was 1% better today than I was yesterday. I may have struggled here. I may have messed up here, but dang it. You know what I did? I didn't eat out today. So I am winning. That's the goal. And only you know, and you need to be able to pat yourself on the back and speak kindly to yourself about that.
I love what you just said, because that's what I always say too, is it's just about, all it is about for today, not focusing on the future, but just for the past today. How can I be just a little bit better than I was yesterday? And I just think that's so important to look at that. We're so hard on ourselves, we're our own worst enemies. And it is a huge mindset shift to be able to do that. But one other question I wanted to ask you was, you mentioned you're human, you get out of integrity as well, like we all do. So when you're out of integrity with yourself and you notice you're out of integrity with yourself, could you tell everybody, what do you do to get back in integrity with yourself?
So number one, and we've talked, this, we have a 3-step process, right? Confess, reassess, recommit. So when you know you're out of integrity with yourself, because you're going to mess up. And if you say you're not, or you say you haven't, you're lying. You're either lying to yourself now, or you're lying about your future. Everybody is. I always will. Dave always will. I mean, all of us, we will always mess up. It's important that when we mess up, we get it off of our chest. Shame breeds in darkness. Like when we keep things in, shame will just pile on. It's like me with my eating disorder. Until I could get it out, it controlled me. You take control when you speak it. So confess is number one. Reassess is number two. Very important. Okay, why was I unable to get the thing done that I said I was going to do? Maybe it was you said you were going to work out for an hour a day or 20 minutes a day and you didn't get it done. Okay, is that goal, is that promise too big? Maybe part of the reassessment is you figuring out if you need to shrink it. Hey, maybe it really only makes sense for me to commit to 10 minutes a day, because that's just that's the time I can commit to and know I can fulfill. And then recommit. So the third step is you take that, hey, I'm going to do 10 minutes today. And you recommit, not just to yourself, but you recommit out loud to somebody else. Because of course, like I said, anything in silence, you're not going to do. But if you speak it, you're holding yourself more accountable. I think the other thing to point out for people that when you break your promises, or to make sure you can recommit when you're out of integrity, surround yourself with people that call you out. Like I had an incident yesterday, Saturday night. I was with my kids. They spent the night. Ruby slept in my bed. And I said to her, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to work out really early. No, it was Friday night. I'm going to wake up and then I'll go, I'll get you guys breakfast on the way home. I woke up a little bit later than I thought. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to work out. I literally did. And I'm like, by the time I got to leave on a flight and this and that. And I just said it to myself, and Ruby walked in at 7 a.m. and she's like, I thought you were going to work out. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to, because I got to leave for a flight at 10. And she's like, no, you said you were going to work out. You should work out. And I'm like, okay. My daughter called me out on my integrity, my 7-year-old. And so guess what I did? I got in the car. I only made it to the gym for 15 minutes, but I did a workout for 15 minutes. And most importantly, I felt better about myself.
Yeah, it's like something is better than nothing. I mean, so many people, and I used to think this, that I have to be in the gym for an hour or 2 hours or whatever. But it's like sometimes all I have is 10 minutes. And it's like, there's studies that show even 10 minutes of activity does your body good. And even physically, that may be the case, but mentally, I feel good about myself if I can do even 10 minutes versus if I do absolutely nothing, because then I start beating myself up and saying, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. Right.
Yeah. So today, as a matter of fact, this is a daily battle. I've had my workout clothes on all day. Here we go. Workout clothes on. As soon as I got the kids off to school, I came home real quick, grabbed my weight belt, got in the car, drove to the gym, sat outside on phone calls, da, 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 da. And then I was like, now I'm out of time. So I literally turned around, drove home before our podcast here. I almost got in the shower to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to work out today. I'm going to get in the shower. And I was like, no, I'm going to stay stinky and I'm going to stay sweaty because I got to get to the gym at some point. And it might just be for 10 minutes, but that's okay. Anything is better than nothing.
Absolutely. And this is another one of the mindset kind of shifts that we're talking about. And I really like what you're talking about too with the silent promises, because that's something I used to do with myself all of the time. And the reason that I kept them silent is exactly what you said, is I knew I wouldn't follow through with them, right? But I would keep telling myself this. And so I have something I hear from clients a lot is they're like, okay, I'm ready to tell somebody, like, what my promises are, and then check in with them. And they usually do that with, if they're working with me or, some like a coach, they'll check in with the coach. But once they're done with the coaching, I hear from a lot of people, they just say, I don't have an accountability partner. Like there's not like I always call it like a safe person, somebody who's not going to judge you or beat you up, but somebody who's going to be there for you. They might give you some tough love, but they're your friend. They're there to support you. And what is your advice to somebody who doesn't have that kind of support? How can they find an accountability partner? I mean, obviously a coach, they could find it in a coach, but if they don't have a coach, how can they find some kind of an accountability partner?
That's we're really lucky these days. In the past, I think it was a lot harder. You had to find somebody at your local gym or YMCA or your neighborhood, like someone in person, because we just didn't have the resources and tools that we have today. But in this day and age, there are so many wonderful online communities that are free. Now, I believe in paying. I do. And the reason I believe in paying for a program or paying for a coach is because you value what you pay for. You do. When things are given for free, you take it for granted. You're like, oh, I'll get back to it later. When you pay for something, when you know you've invested, maybe it's an exchange of services, but when you know you've invested your energy, maybe it's money energy, again, maybe it's something else, you're going to be like, okay, I have skin in the game. I'm going to do something with this. And so I believe in finding I think a good coaching program or a good community, like something that has a great community aspect is huge. But if you don't have the money, if you don't have the resources, there are so many free ones. There truly are so many great free things. Find people in there, get out of your shell. It's a really hard thing to feel like we can be ourselves, right? We're scared. We have social anxiety, even online. Mm-hmm. But really challenge yourself to go out of your way, because people can't see the good that you are unless you let them see it. You have to type things, be what's the word? Be communicative, let your personality show online and find the people that click with you.
Yeah, you have to show up. I can join a group, but if I'm not actually typing anything or participating, then it's like, how am I going to find somebody else or an accountability partner or get benefit out of the group? So yeah, completely agree with that. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but one thing I hear so often from people is they don't have time for themselves, right? And I know you're a mother of 4. You have multiple businesses, right? And you have a lot of stuff going on in your life, but yet you still find time to take care of yourself. And I know like integrity is important and all this stuff, but as far as like finding the time to put yourself first, I mean, we just talked a little bit ago about maybe you're only having 10 minutes to work out, but do you have any other tips for mothers, or maybe they're not mothers, maybe they're people who work a lot of hours or whatever the case. Yeah. What's your advice?
I think the very first thing I'm going to say is you're never going to find time. You're not going to like pick up a pillow and be like, oh, there it is. Or turn around the corner and be like, oh, no, you have to make time for you. You only have 24 hours. You have all these other obligations. You have to, at the very beginning, I reminded everybody that you are the most important person in your world. I have to be prioritized as my most important person in my world. You do. Because if I can't help me, if you can't help yourself, you can't help anybody else. And until you really understand that, you're not going to make time for yourself. You're not, but you have to treat you like you would treat your child or your parents that you love. And you have to be willing to carve out that time to put you first. I think it's also important. Nora Roberts, who's an author, had given a really great analogy to a reporter when she was asked a question about how do you juggle, how do you balance, and she said, we all need to first identify that we're not juggling 5 balls, we're juggling 55 balls. There are so many things in the air. And the biggest key to juggling is understanding that some of the balls in the air are glass and they can't drop, and some are plastic. And if they drop, they're going to bounce and it's going to be okay. And every now and then a glass ball might fall, it might break, and it's okay because we can clean it up. But understanding that nobody can determine what a glass or a plastic ball is in your life besides you. Some days, like going to a kid's thing might be a plastic ball compared to what deadline you have at work that actually will impact your life, right? You get to determine that. And if somebody has something negative to say, it's okay. You determine your glass balls, you determine plastic, and it's fluid. They can change from day to day.
Yeah. And I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and compassion and just do the best we can. You know what I mean? And I feel that I try to learn from everything, maybe I think I'm going to have time to work out or to meal prep, whatever it is. And something happens and I'm not able to. So I instead of beating myself up, because I know that doesn't get me anywhere, it just makes me feel worse. I just try to learn from it and say, okay, if this situation happens again, what would I do differently? So that I can try to learn from it. But, perfectly imperfect, right? And just to learn from it. But I love that analogy. I've never heard that before. That's a really, really great analogy. So I also want to ask you the another question or it's based on what I see a lot in myself and also with other people that I coach. I see sometimes people that are kind of in this vicious cycle of self-destructive behaviors and thinking. So, they might do good for a little bit of time and then they slip back, and then they might do good for a little time and they slip back. And it's not like they make, it's almost like they throw in the towel. You know what I mean? It's like they're doing good and then they're like, I'm done, I quit. And they get back into a completely miserable place because they're doing all of their bad habits again. And obviously that has a little bit to do with integrity probably, and the goals that they're setting for themselves are probably unrealistic. But what advice would you give someone who feels like they're stuck in this kind of vicious cycle?
So to that person who is continually in that vicious cycle of on and off and on and off and on and off, I think the most important thing is to recognize that you're not alone. Sometimes we feel alone in that place, and that aloneness adds to the shame and it adds to the I can't do it. It pulls away from the belief, right? And of course it's related to integrity, and you kind of mentioned it in your ask. But if you can realize you're not alone, and this is a very normal thing, you can begin to give yourself grace. And we have to have grace as we go through things, because if we don't, we're not going to keep trying. If we can't say sorry to ourselves, we can't forgive ourselves, if we can't, do all of the things that are necessary to allow us to believe in ourselves, we're not going to try again. And then understanding that when you're ready, I love the quote, before I go too far, the quote, you're only one meal or one exercise or one choice away from getting right back on track. I think that needs to replace the soundtrack in your head that's telling you, I can't do it. I failed again. I'm not good enough. You need to say, I am only one meal. I'm only one choice away from getting right back on track. And it's true. We can stop the pain. We can stop the fall before it goes too deep. And even if it goes deep, knowing that there is a way out, that you are not broken. You are just human. And you're able to climb out of this. You are. And if you need inspiration, if you need guidance and hope, look at people like you, Jennifer. Look at people like that were on our show. Mm-hmm. Why did we work with super obese? Because if they can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes like one thing I've done is try to shift my perspective. So like if I'm going through a difficult time, instead of, beating myself up for that, I try to tell myself, you know, I know that I can learn from this. I know that this experience is helping me become stronger and that this is just a part of my journey. Now, that's not to use that as an excuse to stay out of integrity, but what I mean is as far as how I treat myself and talk to myself. And then I need to, work on getting back in integrity. Cause like you said, those two go, I think, hand in hand. But I like what you also said too about you're only one choice away from getting back on track. Often we feel like if we blow it, then we've ruined the whole week and we might as well just keep blowing it. And then on Monday, we'll start again. Right. And then but Monday comes and we don't start again.
It's
So
true. It's
yeah,
very true.
just getting back on track, I think as soon as possible is the best thing to do. So, but anyway, yeah, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And would you tell our listeners how they can find out more about you, what you're up to? Would love for you to share that.
Oh, thank you. Well, you obviously mentioned a lot of the stuff that I've done for years. For those that don't know, I actually am. Do you know I'm doing a 60-day fitness challenge?
I just
right
saw
now?
that. Yes.
It's actually really, really fun. It's starting September 27th. I don't know when this is going live. I don't know if it's after September 27th. But it will be around after that as well. But it's really fun. And the whole idea is to do things or to do a thing that has community in it. And it's really my first project alone because Chris and I are not married anymore, which has been a really difficult thing for me to process and go through. And moving on is hard. It's hard to move on publicly and see people see me, but at the same time, I can't change what is. And so but I can make the best of what is. And so I have something that I'm doing that I created on my own, which is really exciting. Yes. And so it's 60 days where we're doing nutrition and exercise and community and prizes and all sorts of things. And they kind of tie in. I have a handful of digital products that are evergreen and always available that really focus on self-love. So that is, you can find everything at HeidiPowell.net, but the challenge is HeidiPowell.net/get-fit. And even if it started by the time this comes out, we'll be doing it again. It's really fun. And then on social media, I'm Real Heidi Powell everywhere.
And I think that fitness challenge just sounds really great, especially for people who are struggling to find like other people who are going through the same thing and maybe to get some accountability partners, plural, multiple people. So if you're listening and you're feeling like you're alone and you're feeling like, gosh, I need more help from other people that are going through the same thing, I think that check out Heidi's Get Fit Challenge. That just sounds really great. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much, Heidi, for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know my listeners do too. And I hope that everybody has a great day. Thanks everybody for listening to the podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. I was so grateful to be able to interview Heidi Powell, who I did have the opportunity to work as a coach for about 1.5 years. And her wisdom is really life-changing. And I, again, am so humbled and grateful to have had the opportunity to interview her. I would love to hear what you thought about this podcast episode. And remember, you're a warrior in progress. You can do anything that you set your mind to.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Warrior in Progress podcast, then please share it with your friends, share it with everybody. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast as well so you can get notifications on when I release new episodes. Meanwhile, you can follow me on social media. On Facebook, my handle is fullycommitted13, and on Instagram, my handle is fully_committed13. You can find out more about my work at mckeehealth.com. That's MCKEEHEALTH.com. And make sure to download my free Tame Your Inner Critic guide at mckeehealth.com, and you can learn how to stop beating yourself up, how to stop sabotaging yourself so that you can achieve your goals. Remember, you're a warrior in progress, and you can do anything you set your mind to.